Joining us now, Brian Moran. He is the Virginia Secretary of Public Safety and Homeland Security in the Terry McAuliffe as governor administration. And I'm sure he's been having a tough day also trying to figure things out. And we appreciate him joining us today. Secretary Moran, thanks for being with us on this very tough day in America.
Indeed it is, and good morning to you and your listeners. First and foremost, from my position in serving the governor and the citizens of the Commonwealth, we need to determine what, if any, ramifications this mass shooting would have for Virginians. A number of issues are raised. Obviously, the ISIS connection. We're concerned. Any other, this was Gay Pride weekend in Orlando, gay nightclub. Does that mean what ramifications for any, nightclubs here in Virginia or gay pride events in Virginia? Added security. How did this guy get radicalized? Where? What are the circumstances? And so all of those issues obviously are raised. And we have a lot of great professionals in our law enforcement agencies. Virginia Fusion Center is tracking the information, providing it to us. Yesterday I was joined a call with the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security to give us the latest information. And so that's what we are tracking right now is what, if any, ramifications for Virginia. And then, of course, our federal partners are tracking, for the rest of the country and determining what, the motivations and the circumstances around this shooting.
So, Secretary Moran, a lot of people concerned right now. I know more information and details are coming out. And again, I know you're very busy today. We appreciate your joining us for a few moments. But I guess of concern to people, apparently the FBI had interviewed this Omar 2 times. He was on, I guess, some sort of a potential terrorist watch list. He had communications with radical elements. Now I find out, my heavens, he was a security guard, so therefore he certainly had access legally to weapons. What do you think, just looking at this from your own experience a little bit afar, what do you think here, Secretary, was the breakdown?
Well, I don't know if there was. I mean, let's look at it the other way, that this guy actually was on the radar. I mean, these issues get debated around civil rights, and your civil libertarians would be pretty concerned that mere suspicion of some activity would deny him the ability to purchase or carry a firearm or work. I mean, we're built on a system here of jurisprudence that something more than suspicion. These are issues we battle within the General Assembly. On hindsight, looking at this guy, but how would you have denied him purchasing the weapon? On what basis?
Right.
They investigated, and they weren't able to determine there was anything other than, there's a little smoke, but than he would have been in Afghanistan, living here, and then he does something like this. I mean, that's the real challenge. I mean, how do you stop something like that on mere suspicion? We do have a great, there's a program, See Something, Say Something. That's every citizen of the country, certainly our fellow Virginians. If you see something suspicious, report it to law enforcement, let them investigate. But, to say, the FBI or other law enforcement should have done something on what? You got to have something more than mere suspicion, and obviously this will be investigated, and we'll see if other real something tangible is discovered that should have alarmed, a heightened alarm. But again, the guy had a job, and he had all of his rights, and he was working, and something like this occurs, you just I don't know how it's a real challenge for law enforcement.
I got to tell you, Mr. Secretary, that answer that you just gave, I think, is spot on. You don't know. I mean, that's really what the problem is. President Obama yesterday, and I know you back Obama and all that, but, I mean, you look at him yesterday, and, Mr. Secretary, there's a lot of people just scratching their head today. He's talking about, access to guns. You just said there was nothing to prevent this at all. He's talking about a hate crime, and yet they just absolutely refuse to call this enemy what it is. I mean, the guy says he's an ISIS fighter. ISIS says he's an ISIS fighter. He's pledged to the ISIS ideology, their war political agenda, and yet we've got our own president that simply cannot say the words Islamic extremist terrorist. Why?
I'm not going to get into the geopolitical. I mean, I just heard Donald Trump on the, both sides. Donald Trump was just saying we got to stop Syrian refugees from coming into America. I mean, what is that? This kid was born in New York City. He's an American, homegrown terrorist. I mean, banning Syria. What's the relevance of that? Donald Trump's response. But hey, all of what we do in Virginia is we're trying to deal with real facts. We really need to make sure what are any ramifications, heightened security, heightened investigations. Let's track this kid. Where did he become radicalized? Are there others being radicalized? Is there a particular mosque? Those are the types of issues we need to determine. The politics of it, there's going to be a lot of politics. I mean, there's a whole other debate here on the easy access to an AR-15.
Right.
Second Amendment muskets. You can't go into a bar with a musket and kill 50 people. But a semi-automatic weapon is a weapon of mass destruction. You can kill a lot of people in a short amount of time. So there's a whole range of issues that can be debated, discussed. What we're doing right now in Virginia is just trying to track down what the ramifications are and make sure we ensure the security of our Virginians.
And Mr. Secretary, what, to the extent of your knowledge, I mean, there's some people saying that there's many of these so-called radicalized Islamic terrorists out there that are in America now. And as you mentioned, I mean, this is a natural-born U.S. citizen, right? It's not like he's not like, the FBI missed the vetting process like what happened in San Bernardino. This young fellow was born in New York. He's an American citizen, got radicalized.
Yep.
From your perspective,
and 29 years of age and is working, and from what we can tell so far, didn't have the criminal record that would have raised suspicions, and or they're going to look at his his social media network. What if any indications could there have been? But they actually did investigate him. I mean, I look at the silver lining on that, and this kid did come to the FBI's attention, and they did investigate him, and I actually see that as a positive that somebody alerted the FBI to this kid, and that's what we have to do. All of our citizens need to be vigilant. And the other aspect, of course, is soft targets in Virginia. All your military bases, and the Pentagon, and Hampton Roads. You can ensure some security there, but a soft target like a nightclub. I mean, it's just it's next to impossible to ensure the safety of every soft target. And these ISIS magazines, there's something called Inspire, some of these other magazines, they talk about nightclubs. They mentioned Old Town Alexandria, where I used to live in Alexandria. They mention those places because there's prominent people that patronize those restaurants in Old Town. And, they mention those places as soft targets. So it's it's a very real threat. And when something like this happens, it really brings it, the urgency that we need to pay, and the vigilance that we need to pay attention to this.
No question. So, Mr. Secretary, you've been around this stuff now a long time, and I know you're very involved in it. What is these so-called radicalized extremists like this fella Omar, naturalized born U.S. citizen that gets involved with ISIS or gets online, or I understand he was in an online class or something. What is their objective here?
Well, I think their objective has been achieved on this one. Fear, instilling fear. And it's a horrible thing. I mean, but we're not going to succumb to it. We're just not going to succumb to it. We're going to continue to cherish our ideals as Americans, a free society, recognizing everyone's rights. That this was, they hate gays. They don't tolerate that in their countries. we embrace it in Virginia. In Virginia and the country, we celebrate people's diversity and our great democracy. And we need to just fight back that way. That hey, we're not going to change our ways because you're trying to instill fear in this country. And I think that's the way we fight back, and we remain vigilant. We mourn the lives of those lost. It was just a horrible tragedy on Saturday, but just like 9/11, we're gonna get stronger, and we're gonna. Of other countries, that democracy is the greatest country on earth.
Mr. Secretary, the other scary thing about what happened in Orlando, and you just brought it up, is normally when this have happened, the objective is carnage. In this circumstance, it looked along with that the Islamist terrorist ISIS fighter was also targeting a specific group, which was people that are gay. So
right.
Doesn't this kind of change things now? It's like, where are these people headed with this, right?
Right. Well, I think you can conclude the fact that he drove 99 miles to go to a gay nightclub. I think conclude that it was, a hate crime in addition to an act of terrorism, that he actually was targeting a specific group. And so we need to work with, that's one of the reasons in Virginia we're watching any the Gay Pride Month, and there are events, and I think some heightened security might be necessary to see if there are any clues that anything else might be afoot in terms of targeting that.
Mr. Secretary, final question. Can you outline for our Virginia audience listening right now, going to work, shocked by this whole thing, what do we as Virginians, what should we do to prevent this? What would your advice to us be?
Well, first, we really do have a tremendous law enforcement officials. As your secretary, I've had the opportunity to work every day with local law enforcement, police, sheriffs, our military, and, of course, the state police. And they do a fabulous job. But as citizens of Virginia, we need to be vigilant. See something, say something. It might sound a little corny, but every citizen has to be vigilant. If you see something strange that's out of place of that kind, you should report it to local law enforcement. Let them have that information. Let's piece it together, however small. It may actually be a very important piece of evidence. And so, we really encourage our citizens to be vigilant in that regard and continue to enjoy the rights of Americans. We're not going to succumb to these radicals that would do something like this, and work with your local law enforcement to make sure that any and all type of that information would be shared.
All right. Now, Secretary Moran, I'm going to ask you this political question, right? So,
What's that?
Any plans for Brian Moran to run for Virginia governor in 2017?
No. We have a great guy. Ralph Northam is running as a Democrat. Really good guy from the Hampton Roads region. He's military, a doctor, VMI grad, a statewide office holder, a terrific fellow. So I am very pleased with our candidate. So I'll tell you, though, the job I have right now, it couldn't be better. Getting to work with law enforcement every day, it's a tremendous job. Working for Governor Terry McAuliffe, I'd love to come back on and talk about some of the things we've been able to accomplish.
Absolutely.
In a bipartisan way, by the way. We had a gun compromise that would get guns away from domestic abusers, voluntary expanded background checks. We've done some great things in Virginia in a bipartisan way with mass shooting is a horrible tragedy, but I'd love to come back on and talk about some of the things we've been working on.
Mr. Secretary, would you be willing to serve in your current capacity under another governor in 2017?
I love this job. No, I love this job. Yeah, that's up to a governor to choose. But I'll tell you, I'm trying to do everything I can to make Governor McAuliffe proud of his decision to appoint me to this position, and I'm forever grateful for him to appoint me to it. And I'm just taking every day and seriously. And there are a myriad of issues we're dealing with in this area, and we've accomplished a great deal, and we still have another 18 months, and going to continue to work diligently to ensure the safety and the best prepared Commonwealth. And we've got hurricane preparedness. Just this morning at the Cabinet, we'll be briefing the governor on hurricane preparedness in addition to the Orlando tragedy. So we're briefing him at 9 a.m. this morning. So he and the Cabinet.
All right, Mr. Secretary, we appreciate you making the time to be with us today. You can follow the Secretary on Twitter at VAPSHS, at VAPSHS.
How about that, huh? We have Twitter, we have Facebook, we use social media. I think it's important to share information and with the public. We serve at the pleasure. So thanks for mentioning that, John.
All right, Mr. Secretary, very impressive, your social media presence, no question.